Okay, I think we are up. We are live. Yep, we are live. Thank you for being here. Welcome to the podcast. How's it going tonight?
It's going great. It is earlier here. It's about 12 midday in Melbourne, Australia, and I'm having a great time. And yeah,
You're coming from
nothing.
the future for sure. But
Yes, exactly.
but before we start getting a little crazy, why don't you just give a little quick brief of who you are and maybe a little bit about your background, and that way the audience and listeners kind of know what we might be getting into here.
Yeah, I'm the type of person that gets pulled in two directions. One between the performer in me. I'm a singer-songwriter, public speaker, love the bigger stage, the better. And the very introvert, extremely curious about the internal world, spiritually, personal development. What is the mind doing? And helping people really get to the bigger stuck places. So I've always had this push-pull of like, what am I supposed to be doing in my life? Am I supposed to stay singing, or am I supposed to get the tissue box and be in a workshop somewhere helping people, And now I get to do both. We have the Awaken School, which is our company where we run retreats and seminars, whatever you would want to call them, interactive experiences where they're educating, but we always have the music and the experience and really get people into the present moment through art as well. My husband's a bass player. That's why I'm saying we.
Nice.
Yeah. And that's always fun because people don't think of us as musicians, and every now and then we'll just bring a full band to open the show and they're like, what? I thought, what? Thought you were just the author and speaker and facilitator. So we get to do it, not as much now as we used to. That was my full-time gig, but I really love anything that's about an elevated conversation of human potential and spiritual development and all of that.
Well, so let's take it back a little bit though. I mean, so when did you start noticing your love for singing and in the spiritual world? I guess it's a two-part question. I mean, was this kind of all put together? Was you at a young age and just had an experience in your life and you're like, ooh, you like the mind, you want to go down this road and start checking things out?
Yeah.
Yeah, this kind of, how did it all come about?
It was early. It was early. I remember being in my early teens thinking, oh, I'm going to be a nun. Because there was something about the spiritual divine connection, and all you're given at 13 years old, is a nun, or, I was Irish Catholic, Australian girl. And so that's all it was. But I'm not a nun. I don't have the personality to be that, but it was kind of this thing of a pull toward the divine and spirituality early on. And then I just kind of let that go. And I think the first time I was here in my family home growing up, I was probably 16 or 17. I saw a guy on TV who said, have you ever wondered why you think the way you think? And have you ever wondered why you are the way you are? And I remember like going up to the TV going, yes, I do wonder that. And everyone else in my family going like, who cares? So I went off to a personal development workshop very early on at 16, 17, been doing it ever since. And I think that was pretty young for most people, which was challenging because most of my Aussie friends were drinking beer and smoking pot. And I was kind of more interested in everything else metaphysical and potential wise. It had its challenges, but I'd say it was pretty early on, and always wanted to make people feel something, not just know it. I'm not a very conceptual or mental person. I'm more of a heart and body person. So that experience has been really important. And I think that's why the music with the learning has been a big piece of like, no, I don't care what you know. I want to know if you live it. Right. And I want to not just know it, I want to live it.
What did your family think of you going off at 16 to one of these personal development kind of seminars? I mean, were they against that? Were they for it? Like to go explore yourself and find your own way and find out who you are? Or were they like, don't do this. This is a road you don't want to go down on?
They were definitely for it. They were definitely for it. And they're both, my mum's passed now, but I would say they're both very easygoing parents. I chose well, really supportive and easygoing. And I mean, we definitely had our challenges like anyone would do, but that looking back now, knowing how the conditioning of one person happens when you're so young,
Yeah.
and your parental influence, I look back and go, I had it so easy, even though there was challenges. And that's why I was able to continue doing that unimpeded a lot of the time, because I had that support, or at least that it wasn't like, yay, go for it. It was just like, yeah, whatever, honey, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's great that a lot of parents or your parents actually allowed you to go explore that. Where, I was kind of thinking that some parents would be, no, stay on a straight and narrow path. You need to go do X, Y, and Z, and this will help you all through your life. And I mean,
Right.
that's kind of how it was for me growing up. It seemed like that, I was kind of free, but not completely 100% free, because it was just, if I had to come up with an idea like that, it was like, well, I understand that idea, but why don't you go to school? Why don't you go to college and stuff like that?
Yes.
It was almost
Well,
like,
I think
yeah,
that moment happened when I said to my mum, I'm quitting my social work degree and my psychology degree, and I think I want to become a singer. That was that moment. She had a few things to
I see. I see.
say.
But going along your life journey, though, from what I read on your background, though, you seemed like you battled a lot of things, like through, bankruptcy and just, I think you even lost your home, is what I read. And
Yes,
so,
I've probably been in the big ones. I had chronic pain for many, many years. I wasn't able to walk for a few years. Relationship issues of trying to find the love of my life, and feeling like that was just kept hitting, roads. So financial, relationship, health, I think, is probably the biggest one. And being a relatively healthy person who eats well and exercises and all of that, it was very difficult
I get that.
to have that injury and be stuck in bed for so long.
Yeah. What was the injury? What happened, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, so I'd heard it back then, but I was in 2006 on a trip, a work trip, and I carried something a little too heavy. The next day I was down for the count. I had blown 3 discs in my back. I was not able to move. I got stuck over. It was in England at the time. I got stuck over there for many months until I could afford a lay down bed to fly me back. I mean, it was serious, and it was a long journey back into being able to be functional at all without, you know, massive painkillers and someone helping me walk around kind of thing.
Sure. Like you just said, being a healthy person and kind of living that lifestyle, and then all of a sudden, I think you said you couldn't walk for a couple of years. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what was that mindset like then? And just, talking about the spiritual world and just tying it back to that, were you kind of down on it at the same time and down on yourself? Or were you knew like, hey, I'm glad I'm going through like this to kind of find out who I am and how resilient I am and I can overcome this challenge? I mean, what was it like?
Yeah, I think that it was both. I was very blessed to have had enough experience of the observer and the one that has the bird's eye vantage point that everything is in its infinite perfection. So I had enough of that to go, okay, what is going on here? But the sheer pain and the length of time it was going on, I did not cope. Many, many a day did not cope very well. And I think that the hardest part in that area of not coping was the shame, because I was already in the world of manifesting your reality, and you're responsible for what you create. And there I am in a community of people that know me as a teacher and
Mm,
a coach that are manifesting this reality. And I didn't realize how much shame and embarrassment I had, that I couldn't get out of this. I somehow, with everything I knew, couldn't get out of it. And I tried a lot of things. I tried all the weirdest and wackiest and most straight-laced things I could think of, everything, and nothing was touching it for a long time, until I had some pretty big revelations around surrender and what that means, to really be able to loosen resistance to what's going on in your life. And what does that even mean? Because I think a lot of people are in either give up mode or push through mode, one of the two. And I was in that. I was giving up one day and I was pushing another day, and it just didn't work. I share a lot about this for anyone who is listening that might want to hear more about this story in my book, Divine Breadcrumbs. But this is kind of the short version. That was probably the biggest thing that helped, is surrendering to that this might be my experience for the rest of my life. And when my chiropractor said that, like, this might just have to be how it is, I was like, no freaking way. And in that moment, I realized how much force of resistance I had to what was happening. And I spent the next few weeks asking myself, could I be okay? Like, could I be happy and joyful and at peace, even if this was the case for the next many, many decades? And it didn't happen overnight, but it happened within a few weeks. And I'm like, yes, I can figure out a way to be happy and peaceful with this amount of pain. And within days, it was pretty much all gone. It was a miracle of miracles, because there was something unwinding so much. And I don't know if those words relate to you, Chris, that resistance versus surrender to what's happening.
Sort of. Yeah, because what I was thinking about is when people go, like you said, if you go through a very terrible situation, for example, the worst thing that's ever happened to you is the worst thing that's ever happened to you. If somebody cuts you off in traffic, cool, that's the worst thing that's ever happened to you. If you have an accident like what you had, where you're going to be down forever or for a few years, that's the worst thing that's ever happened to you. So you go by those experiences, and based on what you said, you can either learn to adapt to it and push through with it and overcome the challenge, or you can just give up and just say, well, this is going to be how it is for the rest of my life, and what do I do from here? So yeah, and I get that, and I think, and I hope a lot of people are more of just, hey, I want to push through this. I hate that I have to go through like something like this, but you're learning a value from this, or a moral, and you're pushing through, and you overcome, like I said, your characteristics, and you find out more of what the type of person you are, rather than just,
yes,
yeah, this, all right, cool. And you just talking about manifesting, and almost the power of the mind, and to an extent that I've always, like to read articles about how the mind works and how much we don't know about the mind. And just like, for example, Dr. Lane Norton, I don't know if you know who he is. And this is kind of related, but he was talking about, he's always like studying nutrition studies that come out. And he was talking about actually the power of suggestion and the placebo effect. And just that, there's a lot of people who immediately write it off, but just like, what are you talking about? Just, you can't do anything about it. But there's not a lot of evidence, but and I don't know the studies myself, or I can't cite them, but there's some factual information where there are facts behind it, where it's true that your body's listening to what your mind's telling you. And if you're sitting here believing that, you're, what is it, doom and gloom all day, or that, hey, you're getting better, you're being healthy.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and that, hey, it's like how your mind's working, and what your day is going to be like, and your body's going to react to it. Just kind of what you were just talking about.
Oh, absolutely. I would say now, I put my reputation on the science is catching up, and there is unequivocal evidence that what your brain is thinking affecting your body, and also the other way. If your body's got, the nervous system is so, anxious a lot of the time, that sends a signal from your gut to your brain to have an anxious thought. It's going both directions.
Yes.
And so, the work that we do when you see people transform, like either create a miracle or change their life significantly, is when three things happen at the same time. It's not that they've just done their mindset work, because we saw that was only getting people so far, like, oh, just have a better belief about that, or just push through, or just like, that wasn't doing it every time. But when you're with your psychology, which is your mindset, and that is one stool, and you're working on changing that, but you also do the somatic work, which is the unwinding of your nervous system, which is what the surrender meant to me when I had my back injury. I was continuously in such contraction because of the pain and because of the fear that it would continue. And so it was the letting go of the fear that I had to stop this, and it just was okay if I had this for the rest of my life. It was unwinding me somatically, which has to occur if you're trying to heal something in your body, heal something in your back, and everything's so tight. And so the somatic is the second stool, and the third, depending on, if someone's atheist or religion, I don't really come from a religious background so much. It's more a spiritual practice. Spirituality is the third, and that essentially is, if you don't love that word, anyone listening, is receptivity. You are in a receptive experience to something larger than your ego earth suit, as I would call it. And when you do those three, highly receptive person who understands their psychology, their own, very well, that you can call it out every time it happens, and you're doing somatic release work, you become a completely different person that's able to then train, this is who I want to be, versus I'm an out pitcher from my conditioning.
Mm. Do you think a lot of people in a modern world don't really know their psychology?
I think most people by far do not know their psychology. I would put it in the 97 percentile that they don't know. Because what happens is that the blind spots are called blind spots for a reason.
Sure.
And so they might know their psychology to a certain degree, like, oh, I have a limiting belief about this. I have a limiting belief about that. I think that's kind of, 101, and you got to think better thoughts, and that's what, 102.
Yes.
But when it gets to really what happens, I use the Enneagram. I don't know if you know the Enneagram very well.
Is it you base your personality on a number?
Not yet. It's 9-pointed shape. And so I use that a lot, not because it's a typology, like Myers-Briggs or DISC or something like that, which all of those are great. But why I love the Enneagram and why I've studied it for over 20 years and now teach it is is the main thing up on that psychology leg of the stool, is because it will show you your blind spots clearer than anything else I've seen, and it will show you the way out. So there was many things when I learned what my type was and I decided to go deep in it, that I'm like, oh my God, that is why this has been happening. And I couldn't even see it. And I was already pretty far along in understanding how psychology works. So that's when I say 97%. I think it comes from, they might have a little sense of the conscious mind, but most people have no clue why they're doing what they're doing. And when we get into an event, that's what we're working with. And most of our people that come to the Awaken School events have been on a personal and spiritual development path for decades. They're not like 3 years in, and they don't know their psychology. They have been doing it for decades, and they don't know what's going to be most important for them to know so they can change it.
Yeah. No, I don't, 97%, that's very, very high. And I guess I could agree with that. I don't really have a lot of information to say not, but I mean, I was one of those people and probably still am. But, like you said, where you found out kind of early in life, you wanted to know why, when, how, and where, and all that good stuff. And I didn't really understand my psychology at all until, maybe after college, after I got one of my master's degrees and started kind of going on my own path and kind of living off my own life experience, and then just wondering, wait, why do I think that way? Or why did I do that way?
That's still so young.
Yeah, well, I guess. That's
still so young.
But I guess I'm just thinking about it that, like even during college, that I would just go along with the flow of things, just like it was living off momentum and, just living for the present and not really thinking about, the five, when, where, who, and why, and whatever.
Exactly. And I'll give you an example of someone who thinks they know their psychology, but actually doesn't, is the quintessential successful person, right? Like I am going to make it happen. I am going to go to these workshops and I'm going to learn how to focus on what I want and make it happen. And now I've got this successful job and I'm showing the world that I've just got it. And because I know that mindset means everything. And then you slow them down enough for them to realize why that is their MO.
Yes.
Why is that their MO? And it is almost always because they have been conditioned that they are a human doing and they get love that way versus who they be. And so if you stop them for even 2 hours, they are lost.
Yes. No, I agree. And that was one of the things with I don't want to say it was a pro of the pandemic, but like I said, I was kind of living off momentum, and that's kind of what made me slow down. That I got out of my normal routine from, all right, go to work, cool, get
Right.
lunch, go to the gym, come home, do whatever I do, rinse and
Right.
repeat, and then let's live for the weekends. And then it was kind of life slowing down for me is when I started wondering about, hey, am I as happy as I thought I was, or I'm just happy because I'm getting this outside love sources
Exactly.
and satisfaction. But it was just like, was I living for me, or am I still living for me? I mean, I question more of what was going on within my life, and not in a bad way, but just wondering that, hey,
Yep.
is there better ways?
Yep.
Was this what I really wanted out of life? Is there
Yes.
something better? Is there something worse? Is there something I could change? I mean, what are
Yep.
my goals? Where do I see myself in 10 years, 15 years? All that.
Exactly. That's fantastic. And
Yeah.
I think that is one of the collective gifts that came out of these last few years is anyone who had the ability to, because some people aren't taught this, they don't have the ability yet. It is a taught thing
Yes.
to understand yourself more. And when we have thankfully have that ability, that a lot of people were reassessing and
Yes.
reorganizing, and that's great.
Yeah. Well, it's also having conversations like this one where, years ago, I was not really having conversations where it was, to talk about if you were living life differently or spiritual or religious. And like now, because I don't know if it's because of podcasting or just media in general, but it seems more, what's the word am I looking for? Like cool or sexy or mainstream, that to have these type of conversations where more people are open to live or listen to them rather than just, shy them off and just like, hey,
Absolutely.
we're not bringing this up at all. We can't conversate like this. And,
Exactly.
yeah, yeah. And it's because, and, again, like when I was growing up, if we were to have and I will bring this back a little bit, but if we were to have a conversation, basically, what is religion versus spirituality? That it was like, no, no, there's no spirituality in this house. It's just, Methodist, Baptist, whatever it was growing up.
Right.
This is the way it was. So it was kind of like if you were to start to think a little bit outside the box, it was
Yep.
you weren't ridiculed or, set in a bad way, but it was just almost that you were almost felt bad for just even bringing it up. Just like, hey, I just was having a conversation. That's because I wanted to know. Yeah, I'm not saying I'm full blown X, Y, or Z, but I'm just asking questions.
Right.
That's what's great about, like I said, these podcasts and stuff where you can have these conversations and
Yeah.
ask people like, hey, wait, why do you think this way? And rather than just
Yeah.
saying that, hey, I think all pens in the world should be black. It's just like, well, wait, what's your outlet? Why does every pen need to be black? It's
Right. And I think science has had a big deal to do with that because a lot of people need and want to see proof, and there's a lot more proof of a lot of these things that we're seeing
yes,
or sensing, experiencing on our personal growth journey or a spiritual growth journey. So that's helped, and just the general nature of evolution and collective evolution has been happening, and so it's wonderful. But I do have to remind myself, because I've been in this business for over 20 years, I have to remind myself sometimes, like, what you're talking about is not woo woo anymore, Rachael
right.
Jayne. Like, I have to remind myself because I was so used to that. Oh, you're in this woo woo land. And I'm like, well, not really. I'm in the probably the most practical application land of one's life you could possibly be in. But
Mhm.
oh, well, you can call me woo woo if you like.
And like I said, bringing this up though, and like being woo woo or whatever. I mean, what is your, and I've had a lot of different discussions on this. What is your definition of like religion versus spirituality? I mean, what would you?
Yeah. So spirituality to me, which I would put in my definition, whatever anyone else thinks, I just speak from my experience, is the overarching umbrella, and the religion is underneath. So spirituality is our receptivity to the divine, or to whatever you call it, to the infinite, to the 0 point field, if you're a science, or if, like, God. It's how receptive am I to, I'm not just an earth suit. There's something else that I am receiving impulses and ideas and intuitions from that is infinitely perfect and infinitely full of possibilities.
Right.
So, and then under that, we all have our paths that are trying the best possibly that we can to be more receptive to that experience. So Christianity, I grew up Christian,
me too.
being in a Catholic household, and we weren't overly religious, but I was more than anyone else because I felt this call for receptivity, and that's all I had. That's all I knew was go to Catholic youth group and pray and sing Kumbaya with a guitar. That's all I knew.
Right.
And so that's religion, is religion through texts and practices and, someone would say dogma from centuries ago. And so I think every religion has very similar tenets, obviously, right? Love thy neighbor, forgive, be compassionate. God is infinite. But it's these differences. So it's a little more of the religion is a path or a practice or a set of practices that people usually get handed down by their parents, and if you're not religious, a lot of people nowadays use nature as their spiritual practice. They connect there, which is very hard, to be in a beautiful nature spot and not feel the infinite amazingness of everything, and that there's more than just you.
Yeah, that was a really good point you brought up, and that was something that I guess I borrowed from somebody else. That where somebody was talking about the differences between religion and spirituality, and that it kind of boiled down to, it didn't really matter what religion you were, but it was just like you said, that most, or all religions I know anyway, that they all say like, hey, just be a good person, just be a good human being. Don't steal. Obviously don't cheat and all that good stuff. It was just whatever your definition of being a good person is, that's it. And that's what all religions seem to kind of value themselves on, which is like, hey, okay, just be a good person in life, whatever that.
Yeah. And where I think religion really helps is it's about there's the being a good person, forgive, all of that, but there's this receptivity piece. And religion teaches that in different ways. That's the ask and you shall receive. Pray and you will be you will have your God will answer.
Right.
And so there's this, why we go to church, or why we do pray, or why we meditate, or why there's mantra in other religions. These are all call and response, receptive, open, because that ends up being a really important aspect of how we unwind all our conditioning and trust. Like people say, trust in the universe.
Yes.
If we're not receptive to the universe, good luck trusting, So there is also that piece, which I think religion does the best it can,
right,
in its sometimes limited view and sometimes expanded view of what spirituality is. But that's also a key gift that it brings.
Yeah. And here's what I was wondering about that. You said you've been in this industry field, whatever, for like what, 20 years? Is that what you said? Over 20 years?
Yeah.
I mean, and obviously religion and spirituality, they're kind of hot button topics, or can be. And
yes.
So for people who, I mean, do you ever find people who come at you and like, saying that you're wrong for believing what you believe in, that you shouldn't live your life this way, that you're just, wrong the way you're living life? I mean, do you get that a lot in this field?
I don't.
Oh, okay.
I don't. Yeah. I don't. And here's why I think I don't, is with the Awakened School. So the community that we've built, which is many, many thousands of people, I'm very clear who I'm talking to and who
Sure.
I'm attracting. And we always say at the beginning of everything, all of our work is for people who've been on a personal and spiritual development path for a long time.
Yes.
And so they aren't the only people. And people generally who've been on a personal spiritual development for a long time, they have learnt multiple religions, or they've dabbled in multiple, or at least they might be Christian based, but they have gotten to a point where they are very open to acknowledge someone else may have a different way of their connection to God. So the community from the get-go doesn't really, lend itself to that.
Okay.
And then, of course, I don't read any trolls on YouTube, so that probably helps as
That's
well.
very, very smart, especially in this day and age. That's very
Yeah.
smart. I heard a great quote one time. Do you know who Michael Jordan is? Famous basketball player. That he's
Yeah.
probably not on Twitter and YouTube reading all the comments. That's why he's great.
Exactly.
Yes, he's not letting other people who are keyboard warriors let him troll him or whatever.
Right.
But no, yeah, but it just seems like in a hot, and I'm glad that you're not getting that negative energy towards you just because it seems like in a modern world again today that just almost anything you do, it's always wrong. There's always somebody who's offended by one thing or the other, and that you can barely. Yeah,
Absolutely.
and it's like, oh, and especially with like a hot button topics like this, it doesn't really, like I was talking about a little bit earlier, depending on what side you lean on and then why you justify the way you believe and what you do and stuff. It's like, what you asked me what I believe, and I'm still telling you, and you're still telling me like I'm the wrong person here. I'm just, yeah,
Exactly.
and so
Well, it's funny because in these last few years of all this division, at least in the US, where I'm, not a citizen, but I live there. I've lived there for more than 20 years, so I feel more American than Australian. That people were asking me about my, what's my, stance on vaccines? What's my stance on the election? What's my stance on the blah, blah, whatever, that's on there. And I am pretty well informed. I would say for most people, I'd be pretty well informed because I look at both sides, and I probably aren't pulled into so much emotion because I didn't grow up with American politics. So I think that helps. I'm not so entrenched, in one side or the other, and that's my life. But what happened in the beginning was, especially with the all the health implications and everything of COVID and masking and vaccines eventually and all of that, I wouldn't tell anyone. They could kind of see how I was living. I personally wasn't scared of it from the get-go. I personally have my own sensing of what's going on and when I need to protect myself and when I don't, or when I might be a thing. So I just wasn't in that kind of, do this. And oh my God, some of my closest work people did not like what I was doing and stopped working for us, or just very judgmental about it. So it might not be, with the religion, that kind of thing, but it was definitely there. And that shocked me because I hadn't been in that situation for a while. But what happened is I became resistant I'd say there was a few months there that I became resistant to them being judgmental, right? Like, you shouldn't be judgmental. And I've done more research in this. And like, what are you talking about? I wouldn't say that out loud, but I was saying that internally. And then it felt such a constriction that I'm not used to. I've been lucky enough to feel a pretty unshakable inner peace for a long time, given this work. But I could just feel the churn, like, oh, this does not feel good. And so I did the same thing with my back. I had to surrender to that people are going to see me as someone that's so stupid that I'm trying to kill someone. It's like, oh my gosh, I've got to be okay with that.
Sure.
And not resist them. And once that happened, I was able to go through the next years with being part of this division thing, but not being part of it, and being able to stay with what I wanted and what felt right to me, but not play the game, which it seems like a lot of people have been hooked in from both sides. They're hooked in, and really what I see is one, one group being whispered in there, like these people are demons, and then there's other people whispering in these ears, these other people are the demons, and people are falling for it. Like, oh my gosh.
No, that's exactly, I guess, what I wanted to kind of reiterate was just that, it seems like the world has become so polarized that, if you were to someone ask, what's your stance on vaccines, abortion, religion, drugs, climate change, just whatever you say, you're immediately labeled, oh, put you over here in the bad group or
Yeah.
the good group or whatever,
Yeah.
it is. And it's almost that, like I've been saying, that you can have these conversations, but you can't at the same time, because depending on who you're talking
Right.
to, they'll immediately judge you and just think, "Oh, you're," like you said, "you're the demon," or whatever. Just like, "You asked me my opinion. I gave it to you." And that's why I like
Exactly.
that's why and
Exactly.
that's why I like having people on this podcast who are kinda on both sides of everything, I guess, that, like you said, like, I wanna hear both sides of whatever topic, story, or whatever it is, just because, it balances me out, that I just don't think one way or the other, that I can actually understand that, "Ooh, I didn't see, that point of view in their shoes in that light," and that's one thing that
Exactly.
it helps me, keeps me, what, less rigid, and that way more like, "Ooh, cool, okay, that
Yeah.
makes sense. I never thought about it that way," and
Yeah.
rather than just, "Hey, it's this way or the highway, and that there's nothing else," and then, especially if you have very well educated research guests who actually can, explain stats and figures and stuff, rather than just saying, "Oh, I read it on Twitter or Instagram, and that's why."
Right.
Like, that don't mean it's right, that don't work.
Exactly. And even the stats and the figures and all of that, who paid for the study? Was it double
Exactly.
blind? Blah, blah, blah. And so, but I think the power in these times is people even having those conversations like we're having about who paid for the research. And that would not have really happened
Yes.
prior to this. So there's definitely a lot of gifts, definitely a lot of eye openings, but I feel like, it's also calling us to find that inner compass and the inner strength, inner peace to not add to the frenetic fighting.
Mm, I
Like
agree.
someone's got to go first here.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, and I keep thinking that things are getting better just because of, how conversation seems to be the cool thing to do and have an art now, like with podcasts and everything, but then, all of a sudden we have some other random little. Oh, did you freeze up? Uh-oh. Oh, you're back. Oh, whew. I think I froze up
Okay.
for a little bit, but, yeah, so I think, yeah, I guess just again, just, I keep thinking things are getting better just because of having these type of conversations, but it's still, then almost something will happen where it's like, "Oh, wait, you're on this side of the house. Oh, you're not cool, then, just move on. I don't wanna talk to you anymore." And it's like, how do we get things better for the future? We
Yes.
can't keep living in a polarized world like this. I mean, I mean, obviously not everybody's always going to agree and or agree on everything, but it's also fine to actually have these small debates and, disagree with somebody, and still at the end of the day, it's like, cool, we had a great conversation. I'm not going to be ridicule you for thinking the way you think.
Absolutely.
And I think you even said it earlier that sometimes you can't, or maybe I can't remember if I asked you, but I mean, can you? I heard it somewhere, but can you control you can't really control your thoughts, Can you?
Not much.
Yeah,
Not much.
and to an extent, I guess where I get this from, that sometimes we have, bad thoughts, and obviously we have good thoughts, but sometimes, I've wondered to myself, like going down the road, that, if a bad thought, came in, it's like, wait, why did I just think that? Where did that come from? And I guess that's why I'm saying, like, sometimes we can't control them. It's like, I don't know why I just thought that. That was bad. I shouldn't think like that.
Yeah. So the way I see it, because I think that yeah, we have a lot less control than we think. And I would say science backs that up for sure. That what ends up being true about, yeah, oh, okay, I'm gonna think this way and that way. But also I know through experience that I have changed the way that I think a lot. So
Mm,
I know that there is some mechanism to get better at thinking, because I definitely had stinking thinking, as they would say, back in my 20s and 30s, and I don't have that anymore. So there is control in some way, but it's like coming back to that three-legged stool is why I've been able to and work with others now to change their thinking, is because here's the metaphor I like to use. We're tuning forks. We're receiving channels. If you think of the earth suit, as I like to call it, the mind, body, energy field, whatever. I've chosen this earth suit, but I'm not the earth suit. I'm not my body. I'm not my brain. I'm aware of my brain. I'm aware of my body. I'm aware of my energy field. And so I can tune my earth suit to gloomy FM. I can tune it to reality FM, or I can tune it to potential FM. And gloomy FM means I'm hearing songs or thoughts like, you can't do that, and you're never going to be good enough for that, and it's taking way too long, and blah, 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 blah. And if you're tuned there that morning, you're going to receive those thoughts. You're not going to think them, you're going to receive them. And if I'm in reality FM, which most people are, they're in reality or gloomy and a little bit of a sprinkle of potential if they're out in nature long enough, and they're in reality, that means they're in the reality of what's happening currently. So what's the reality of their bank account? What's the reality of the pounds that show up on the scale? Like, that's reality, what's happening here, which is really just a scorecard of the past. It's not now, it's what's happened. And potential FM is what's something that they haven't seen, done, been. It's new, better, more expanded. And you've got to be delusional to be in that state, because otherwise you've got to be in reality. So if I'm tuned to potential FM, which comes through receptivity and gratitude and smile on my face, and I've trained my body to feel really good, which I have, I am going to almost always receive thoughts that I am freaking fantastic and I can do anything. And that's what I've trained to do. Or I could train myself to stay in reality FM, or you've got to be realistic about this, you've got to be sensible about this, or we can't afford that, or and you'll create more of what you created in your 20s and 30s. Go for that. Or if you're in gloomy, something happens pretty early on in life where your life goes downhill and it gets worse and worse and worse, and you kind of end up like Uncle Wayne at the family barbecue with too many pounds on and not happy and grumpy all the time, and that's where it goes.
I like it. So I know we're getting a little short on time here, but with thinking the way you think and going down your life experience, and what's part of the motivation for opening up the Awakened School? I mean, where did that come from?
Yeah, so when I first started seeing big results in my own life, I had a natural tendency to go, I want to teach someone else this.
Yes.
And I think I'm a natural teacher. I was a singing teacher when I was just doing singing only. So I love the passing on what works. So that started my coaching career, and just little workshops. We started my first workshop. It was before I was married to my husband, with 5 people in my living room.
Wow.
Actually, no, that was after I'd done a few other little things, but it was always in the living room. And I had a women's thing, and they came over one day, and there might have been like 10 or 12 friends there. That's where it started. And I loved it. Then I hurt my back, and so I had to mostly do coaching, because now I'm in bed, and at least no one would see me laying down if I was on the phone coaching. I just have to try to stay awake.
Sure.
But it progressed after meeting my husband to do more seminars and actually learn what the business is like, because that's when we lost everything. We were like, oh, we'll just start a business and everything will be wonderful. Well, not so much. But once we learned how to do it, then we got really clued into, okay, let's do the Awakened School and build out programs that are extremely interactive and experiential, because we saw people who were good at talking heads, which I think a lot of spiritual teachers are. They'll get up in front of the room and kind of talk, Our genius is getting you to feel and experience and go between when it's not right and when it is. So you can condition yourself like a good athlete to be receiving potential FM pretty much all the time. And so once it started attracting amazing, amazing people from all around the world, we started traveling around the world a lot, doing our trainings there. And now we're centered mostly in Colorado. We've just bought an old historic church in our downtown area that we're redoing for our own space and
Nice.
community to come to.
Nice. And being, like you said, a coach, and this was that part of the reason, like, you, were motivated to write the books, Divine Breadcrumbs? I think you have 1 or 2 others too, right?
Yeah, my first book was Powerful and Feminine, which was all about women coming more into their femininity and not just, oh, I can do it and I don't need a man and that kind of thing, which was more my background.
Okay.
So any guys listening that their woman might need to read that, you can you can read Powerful and Feminine. Or any women that are listening, that was my first book. It sold many, many thousands of copies. So that was great. And then Divine Breadcrumbs was really my memoir. People were asking about the story. They knew I'd gone through some pretty horrific things and how to get through it. And so that was just more my most humiliating and thrilling times in my spiritual journey and personal journey. And my next book's coming out this year called Receive, which is all about receiving, being in potential FM pretty much all the time. I say pretty much because we don't want to be perfectionists about it and, beat ourselves up when we're not super happy. Like, we've got to be willing to be authentic too. But love writing, love sharing, love storytelling. So that's where those came through.
Going back to the, it just reminded me that, my Enneagram, I was a type 1, and ain't that the perfectionist?
Yes, that is the perfectionist.
Yeah, when I took
Why do you think you're a type 1?
Well, to be honest with you, I only took it because, I was dating this girl and she told me I should take it or whatever. But, but before that, I was working in higher education, and we did the Myers-Briggs. I think that's what it's called, that personality
Yeah.
test. And there's some kind of other color personality test, and we did a strength leadership finder, like told you 5 strengths. But anyway, so, but to answer your question, I took the quiz and it's kind of like, whatever, I'll just do this just because she asked me to. And so, but yeah, when it came out, saying that I was a type 1, that I noticed, and I'm not a perfectionist in everyday life, but certain things that I really truly care about, just, I don't know what to say. It's like, as far as like, if I'm very task oriented. So you give me a task, I'm going to do it to the best of my ability, and that I want to get it done but the best way I can do something. Right. And so, and then it kind of, it's like a little gnat too, that if I don't finish it, or if I know there's something else that can be done to it, that, it's like a little gnat that's kind of buzzing around in your face all day. It's like, I got to get it done. I still can get it done. So, and that's just part of like just me knowing that that's the way I am. And like, I like to do things and I like to do them well. And I'm a very, I guess, structured person. Like, I live just kind of based on a routine, and just that when things kind of get out of that routine or out of that structure, I tend to be like, ooh, it doesn't give me anxiety, but I can feel like a little stress come along, and it's just,
Yeah.
I learn to adapt to it. But it's like, all right, well, okay, so this changed. Okay, it's either in my control or it's not in my control. So let me figure it out, and I'll still get over it in one way or the other. So, for example, like if I can't make it to get my gym session in or my training in or whatever, it's like, okay, wait, okay, just because I can't do it now, I can do it a little bit later. We're good. So, and I think in those terms, I just know how my mind is, and I get a sense of it's either right or wrong, I guess, and I'm always kind of looking to improve things, and I want to do things that are very structured and orderly and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
So I guess that's the best way why I would say that.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure. Yeah, yes, whatever you want.
Would you, if you had something important to do, or lots of important things to do, is it more important to get it done and be able to cross that off and go, yep, it's done? Or is it more important to get it perfect?
I think I would say, and I guess for me, it depends on what it is. So if it's work related, I want to get it done perfect. And that way I know it's perfect. And that even though my boss or somebody or anyone might come along, always like, there's always somebody who likes to disagree, or it's like, oh, it can be better or whatever. But to me, it's like, all right, let's get perfect. But like, once I get it done and perfect, then it's like, okay, cool, cross it off. I'm already moving to the next thing.
Got it.
Yeah, it's like, and I rank them in order. Like, okay, this needs to be done in 2 hours. Got it. To 'em. So it's like, but it feels good. Yeah, check that off. Hey, like I said, I'm a task oriented guy, and so that's kind of how I start out my days when I get into my office or when I'm on my day off. It's like, hey, what do I have going on today? And that's
Nice.
and it feels good. You start checking things off, and like I know I did it very well. It's like I crushed it, and you start getting some momentum. It's like, what can I do next? All right, what's the next thing? I got it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. That's great. That's great. And I think, order and structure and all of those are important for everyone. And it's great that you've found your own way of doing
mm,
that, and flexibility. Like that's the other thing. And you found your way of being more flexible over time and having both of
yeah,
those.
you just you learn from it, and I'm a young 36 years old, and just there's a few things I know, and I don't know everything, but I've learned kind of like we were talking about psychology, and I know how I am, and I just kind of go with
Yeah.
it. Learn that,
Yeah.
like I said, if it's in my control, cool, do whatever I can do to fix it. If it's not in my control, it's usually like I try to put up a red stop sign and be like, hey, it's going to be okay. You'll figure it out. If it's not in your control, then why get upset? Don't stress. It'll make
Right.
things worse. So cool.
Right. That's
Cool.
great.
Well, like I said, I know we're getting short on time, and I want to be respectful of it. So, if people want to find your books or just find you in general or just anything you want to promote or give out, feel free to do that.
Yeah, I think theawakenedschool.com is the easiest place to go. The Awakened, which has an ED at the end, awakenedschool.com. We've got lots of free resources, masterclasses, things like that. I think the best first place, if anyone has kind of been sparked by this conversation at all, is become a free member of the Awakened School. And that way you'll be able to get on our list for all the free challenges we do and masterclasses we do and all of that. And that might lead you to come out and see us one day in Colorado, or do a training, or do a retreat for us, so we can put you through your paces and see how much you can hold your center. And the books are all on Amazon: Powerful and Feminine and Divine Breadcrumbs.
Cool. Well, thanks for being here. Thanks for doing this. Any last messages you want to give out, or you think they should know, or what?
Well, I really appreciate the conversation. I love the back and forth and hearing about your story too, Chris. And I think just to remind everyone that these three legs of the stool are important, to have a look at which one are you strong in, which one might need a little bit more support. Your psychology, the somatic experience that keeps the nervous system all wound up and stressed and anxious and trying to be perfect and all of that. And this word called receptivity to something way larger than you are. When those three things to come together, big transformation can happen.
Well, cool. Well, thank you again. Thanks for. I enjoyed this. This was fun.
Yeah, thanks, Chris.
Bye,
See
everybody.
you later.